Hi, friends. Welcome to Life on a Blur. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe. Those of you who have already, thank you so much for your support. Really appreciate each and every one of you. Today, I want to talk about I've been reflecting on really where I am today and how I got to where I am today, and really wanted to kind of um, talk about my ex, because that's really the whole point of really creating this channel. That's the whole situation motivated me to create this channel, honestly. For me, it was an outlet for me to kind of release my thoughts, my emotions, because at the end of the day, I wasn't really sharing things with friends and family, but I felt that I needed to somehow share it somewhere on some platform. And so here we go. Um, I was listening to the Bible app this morning, and the woman that was on said insecurity sometimes leads to, I forgot how she phrased that, but to making the wrong decision. And she was referring it to really not trusting God's will or God's plan. And so sometimes we go ahead and make our own decisions. We trust ourselves to go in the right direction instead of going before God in prayer and trusting His leading. And I feel that's what I did with my marriage. Not the actual marriage, but leading to marriage, my dating experience. I feel as if there was a point in my life where I really felt that I knew I was going to make the right decision. I was prayerful about it, but I wasn't as prayerful. And my insecurity was the fact that I was getting older and I really didn't trust God to make the decision for me. And I even said it to myself. I remember at one point I said, well, I'm gonna go ahead and get married, and if it doesn't work out, then I'll just divorce, as if it was a casual thing. And of course, over the years, I've learned that no, that was not the right decision. It was not the right thought process to have. And entering a relationship or marriage shouldn't be a casual thing, and I shouldn't have thought of it as just making a decision, and if it doesn't work out, there's always a way out. And so I had to reflect on that. And because of the past 5 years that I've been going through this divorce and custody battle, you have to reflect and say to yourself at some point, was it really worth it? You know, what would my life have looked like 5 years today had I really trusted God 5 years ago? Actually, no, not 5 years ago, because it wasn't 5 years ago that I got married, but over 15 years ago. Um, so it really makes a difference, honestly. It brings things into perspective, because maybe I would have still been single. What if that had been God's plan for me? But would it have been so bad? No, because I would have been in His perfect will. You know, I would have been touching lives, traveling and creating experiences and moments. And so, yeah, I don't know where I would have been now had I waited on God 15 years ago, but I definitely know it would have been less stressful. Financially, definitely, it would have been more rewarding, because for the past 5 years, I've been paying legal fees, and for the past 15 years, I've been walking with a man that I thought that I could walk with, you know, in terms of expenses. You know, I supported him when I encouraged him to go back to school to get his bachelor's. Um, I supported him when he wanted to work, um, in a position where it was totally nonprofit. And yes, there was an income, but it wasn't a significant income. So those are the things that I sacrificed, for the sake of a relationship, for the sake of a marriage. And so, was it worth it? No. But have I learned from it? Yes. And would I do it again all over? No. But am I thankful now that I went through it? Yes. Because I've gone through it. Throughout the ordeal, God supported me, and, I did not crumble and die. Although there were moments where I felt as if my health was really in jeopardy and that uh, I was in a state of panic at all times. But I'm thankful that God saw me through. Um, am I saying that right? Yeah. I'm thankful that He provided throughout my years of disobedience, really. I was in disobedience. I walked into a life I made a decision that God did not approve, And so I went with the frame of mind of what the world thought, hey, if it doesn't work out, you just divorce. What's the big deal? But no, it is a big deal. Divorce weighs so much on your mental state, on your physical state, and on your financial state. For some, yeah, it might be rewarding. You may have married someone who allowed you to walk away with all the assets. That wasn't the case for me. And even if that had been the case, there's still that emotional piece to it and that physical piece. You don't really physically walk away because if there's children involved, there's always going to be that reminder of the relationship. And once you physically intertwine with someone, you might be separated from them physically, but they are still part of you. And I think that's the piece that most people forget. You can't just move on to someone else. It doesn't happen that way. In the physical realm, yes, you might be with someone else. You might have a new spouse and think everything's going great. But in the back of your mind, you're always going to remember that former spouse. There's always going to be a point where you remember, oh, yeah, so and so used to do this that way. Oh, or you even try to do things the way that your previous spouse did it, which makes no sense. But that's just human nature. You can't just erase. There's no pencil with an eraser for marriage. You can't get an eraser and just erase your past relationship. It just doesn't happen that way. Once you've had a relationship, that bond is always there. And I get what the Bible talks about, where whatever God puts together, let no man separate. I get that, because even if we do separate, I feel as if the person would be unalive, then it would make it easier to move on. It's one of those things, because sometimes when I bring my youngest son to visit with his father, I always feel as if my ex is trying to prove a point with his new wife, Um, and I don't know if he thinks that um, if he feels that she may have better qualities, but I always feel as if, in a way, he's trying to show me that he's moved on. And and I feel that if you have to try to prove a point, that means you haven't moved on. That means that you're still holding on to some kind of a grudge or bitterness. Um, and if you're still bitter, then the best thing is to really stay put and work on yourself and try to heal versus moving on to a new relationship, because a new relationship is not going to erase the old. It's not going to erase your emotions. You're just piling up old emotions to the new relationship. So my goal is to really to continue to work on myself. And if God brings me someone, which I know he will because that's the desire of my heart, then I'll be fully emotionally stable for that. But my desire is really right now to have a wonderful friendship with someone, with a male friend, and then allow that to blossom into a relationship. So I'm trusting God for that. I know he will come through. I'm in no hurry. I'm totally trusting him this time because you don't want to make the same mistake twice. I surely don't. But that's all I have for you guys today. Thanks for listening. And until next time, don't forget to subscribe. And thank you for listening to La Femme en Bleu.